We're going. Oh, hey.
There's
My cool. Oh, yeah, we're alive. Okay.
Are we live?
Hey, cool kids, I need you to tell me if the sound is working. Please and thank you, as per usual. Also, Nathan Spalding, I don't know if that was aimed at me, but my week's been pretty great. I love you. Somebody tell me if we have sound or not. Please. We'll just hang here in our matching dog shirts until then.
Ooh, actually, you know what? I can pull it up on YouTube here.
No, that'd be so weird. That would be deeply weird.
What are you talking
Oh, yeah, okay, hearing us loud and clear. Thank you, Nathan Spalding. Oh, and there's AJ. Love that.
Hey, great.
Cool, okay. I also, hey, before we start talking about anything relevant, everybody, how about this slightly better picture? I can see the difference, and I love it, because watching previous streams is physically painful to look at. Now it's just painful to listen to because of my uncomfortable, shrill little voice. AJ, you're with us for Tacky Button-Up Night in spirit. Oh my God, the cat. God, please stop him.
What?
Please
It's fine. It's fine.
He's going to pull that cord or that water or so. He's going for that.
It's fine. He's my partner.
He's not. He's my cat. But I'm going to throw him out at some point. We're already off to a great start. Oh, I look less like a ghost.
Yeah, you had to like this effervescence kind of thing.
It was bad. Well, because the camera was, and that wasn't cool. Oh, cool. I'm up to Pete Goblin. I am solid now. I'm no longer incorporeal.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 8:30, so we can like hypothetically get rolling. I love you, everyone who's here. Big thanks to the 2 people who have already thumbs up this video. You made life, and I love you. Oh, everything's a bit green. We'll figure that out as we go. That's probably a lighting thing. I will play with that as we continue. You don't need to fix that right now. It's not, I can see you like getting up and you don't. It's because I have a wall of green outside my window. Let it be. People point out technical things and you just run. It's not, it doesn't always have to be your job, you goddamn Sagittarius. Anyway. Okay, so it's 4:30 now, so we can get rolling. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sex Witch stream. Let me introduce my guest now that I have already verbally harassed him. Nate, please introduce yourself to the chat.
Hi.
That's it. Stream's over. Nate, who the hell are you and why are you here?
My name is Nathan Nguyen. I am the director of LBGT Student Services at Western Michigan University.
My boss.
Yeah, that too. I identify as second-generation Vietnamese American. I was born and raised here in the U.S. I also identify as a trans male. As you can tell, my voice has started deepening because I started taking testosterone in January.
Hell yeah.
And I'm scheduled for chest reconstruction in late July. So August, when it is peak, like getting ready for fall semester, I will be laid up and recovering.
Everyone on campus is going to be running around like mad, and you won't be allowed to like lift your arms too high.
Right, I'm not even allowed to drive. So
yeah, so that's going to be fun for you.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, a lot of fun things, but I'm not here to talk about the trans stuff. Not really. I can talk about.
You kind of are.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like it all goes together.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, thanks.
Congrats.
Dinosaur arms, yes. Okay, so I do have a little bit like.
Sorry.
Thankfully,
that's going to be you in like a month.
Yeah, you know, my arms are pretty good, decent size. My hands are pretty decent size. It's the funny thing is my fiance, her hands are actually. She and I are like basically the same height, but her hands, she has like little raccoon hands. It's like really cute. It's like this size compared to my hands.
Oh, same size. Paige is
tiny.
So small. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it's gonna be fun with the dinosaur arms. And then also, you know, these arms. Hey, there we go, flexing. Okay.
Stop. God. Hey, so when we structured this out, we decided to start with history. What is some important history to know if we're going to talk about API identities?
All right. So one caveat that I do have is that because I'm Vietnamese, I am Southeast Asian, meaning that you know, I have most of my context is East Asian, and then the South, like the Desi diaspora, I'm not as
Wait, what do you mean that one Asian person can't speak for all Asian experiences?
Yeah,
That's bonkers.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
She's actually, no, I mean, she is taller than me.
Yeah.
She just has smaller hands than me, apparently, which is unreal because I have the most freakishly tiny little gecko elf hands ever. No, Paige is definitely taller than I am.
Yeah,
she feels bigger than me because of her personality.
Yes, and she's very curvy. You're a little bird person.
Yeah. Paige could destroy me in multiple ways. From the chat, we've got trans and bi Korean American in Ann Arbor here to already say thank you so much for the stream. Hey, we love you. Also, Michigan Solidarity. What's up?
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'll be going to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for my chest reconstruction, so that's pretty cool. Sorry, off topic. Anyway,
completely off topic.
But yeah, I can't speak for the Desi or the Western half or the Middle Eastern half part of the Asian identity. So my context is only for my personal experience, and also having been born and raised in Kansas and Missouri. So
like the two worst states. Sorry, Alabama. No, that wasn't fair. Alabama's the worst state. I walk that back. I also grew up in Montana, so who am I to talk?
You really,
we got some Kansas love in the chat. Hell yeah.
Yes. My context is a little bit different, and then moving into the South. So anyway, talking about that. So should we just jump in with this?
From as far as Republican states go, Kansas isn't that bad.
Yeah, I grew up in Kansas City. I actually went to the same high school as Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd actually graduated like several years before I did.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I love how you think that going to the same high school as Paul Rudd is an interesting story.
I'm also from the same hometown as Janelle Monáe.
That one is cool.
So
she's also with us in spirit tonight.
Yeah. But that could be another stream. I'm talking about how Paul Rudd invited the entire World Series party to his parents' house.
No, we're not going to do a stream about that. Let's talk about some history because we're 7 minutes deep. I don't think we've said one educational thing.
All right. So the intersection of Asian American identity and LGBT identity. So first we have to kind of go back and backtrack in a little history, talking about like the Yellow Peril movement, the Chinese Exclusion Act, and then the model minority myth, how that was started, and then what happened after 1965. So let's going back to the Yellow Peril movement. So this is very familiar to, especially nowadays with the Muslim ban, is and also the anti-immigrant rhetoric that we have right now, is this idea that Chinese folks would come in and steal white men's jobs. All right. So that was like,
it's so cool how we've gotten over that idea of people coming into the country and stealing jobs.
Yeah. And so they really limited the type of jobs that Chinese American men could have specifically. And I also want to say that Chinese men weren't the only ones that were immigrating to the U.S. There was also a huge Desi population that came into the South, as well as a Filipino population that came into the Southwest.
Can you, for anyone who isn't familiar with the term, can you elaborate on what Desi means?
So Desi can mean the South Asian diaspora, such as India, Nepal, Pakistan, and that region. And Desi can include some parts of the Middle East. And so there you may hear some other acronyms such as, so there's APIA, which is Asian Pacific Island Desi American. There's API, Asian American Pacific Islander. There's AMEMSA, Asian Muslim, like it's wild.
So what we've learned is that many communities struggle with acronyms and fitting everybody in. Cool.
Right.
A universal experience.
Exactly. And so with the Yellow Peril movement, what that was is that it was an immigration act that actually prohibited the amount of Chinese folks that could immigrate to the U.S. Not only that, but during the times when Chinese folks were living out west and building a railroad, hey, that's how we all ended up in the West. And when I say we, I mean also all of America, because if it weren't for the railroad, you'd be like pretty much mostly on the East Coast.
God forbid.
But yeah, so if it wasn't for that, and during the Yellow Peril movement, and if there was anybody who was Chinese out and about, like even if they were out working or minding their own business, they actually had what they called dog tag laws, where they literally had to wear dog tags and two forms of identity to prove that they were, This is new info to you.
This is new info to me. Wow, I'm like yeah,
yes.
Right. No, that that didn't come up at any point. We were outlining. You know,
Yeah.
I've never heard that because we love not talking about our racist history.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is a new one to me.
Yeah. So it was literally called the dog laws or act or something like that for Chinese Americans. And then the other thing about immigration is if it wasn't for the U.S. Supreme Court, Wong Kim Ark versus the U.S. Because Wong Kim Ark was this guy that was Chinese descent, but he was born here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to visit some friends and family in China. And on the way back, they're like, "Oh, wait, you can't come in." He's like, "Wait a minute, I was born here. I'm an American." And then went all the way to the Supreme Court, right? So that actually kind of led the movement to like, if you're born here in the U.S., you are a U.S. citizen. Yes, thank you, dead God, Jess.
Yeah, just summarized it very nicely with people of color simultaneously stealing all the jobs and lazy jobless criminals since 1776.
So yeah, and so the Chinese Exclusion Act also prohibited women, a lot of Chinese women to immigrate, and Asian women in general, to immigrate to the U.S. So guess what? We had this influx of Chinese men, but not enough women. And then of course anti-miscegenation, yeah, laws. So what do?
Like fuck Chinese men, but don't literally fuck Chinese men.
Yeah, and I'll get to the part about the Filipino men, because that's another story, and that's how that we get into this this belief that Asian men aren't masculine.
Yo, we're gonna get into some gender stuff.
Yes.
And it's gonna be so choice. And by choice, I mean incredibly racist.
Yes, that.
But also interesting and important to know.
But yeah, and so back then they also, because now after the railroad was finished, they were like, okay, well, we have all these Chinese guys. We got to make sure that they're not stealing our jobs. So they also made them do things such as working in laundromats, which was back then considered a women's job. So that's another way to kind of emasculate Asian men, is like forcing them to do the jobs that no men want and that were normally given to women.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that you setting this up already where you're trying to emasculate men by giving them jobs that no other men want, and giving them jobs that are normally given to women.
Right.
And then on top of that, there was these, Filipino migrant workers in the Southwest region of the U.S. And back then, and it's still kind of true today, and this is kind of like a good stereotype, is that Filipino men were, known as quite the lady killers. They dressed really sharp. They were really good at wooing the ladies and, that sort of thing. And of course, the white men were really upset that these Filipino men were stealing their white women. So in order to protect white women, as always, what they did is they actually went and did raids and physically assaulted and intimidated Filipino men to stay away from white women.
It's fun. There are like a lot of things that anyone who is like a white woman needs to unpack if you want to like not be a shitty person, I think. And one of those things is definitely how white women have very often been used as like a crux and justification for violence against people of color. That's some shit we need to reflect on within ourselves.
And also against trans people now.
Definitely,
because of the bathroom laws.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. White women, cis white women really get held up as justification to do a lot of shit. And also which is also not to say we were not complicit in a lot of it as well. That's.
Yeah, I'm totally blaming you.
Yeah, I personally did all of it. I just, the whole white women's tears thing is, it's a thing and it's still real and we need to be aware of that. Gotta unpack some bullshit.
All right.
So, where are you in the outline? Because I've been kind of loosely following along.
So fast forward past the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Yeah.
BBG. What is BBG?
There we go. Barbecue Becky.
Thank you.
all the white women who are out in public spaces and see people of color, usually black people existing and are like, I feel threatened. I'm calling the police. There's some black folks having a barbecue over there in my nice white park. I think not.
Yeah. Well,
I feel threatened.
Well, the interesting thing is, so they prohibited the amount of Asian women to come into the U.S. And I do want to say that there were also Desi folks that were immigrating to the U.S. at the same time too. So one of the first folks that I like to highlight is Bhagat Singh Thind, who is an Indian American man who, before Wong Kim Ark, also advocated for his citizenship. And he was still denied citizenship, but he was still allowed to stay in the country, which is really weird. But
yeah, like you can't be a citizen, but you can stay, man.
Yeah, and he ended up being like a professor anyway. So and he fought in World War I for America, which is
we can't make you a citizen though.
Yeah, so it's a really strange thing, but yeah, so they limited the amount of Asian women that could immigrate to the U.S. And so somehow or another, there came these myths and stereotypes of the Dragon Lady, the Asian Dragon Lady, which is there's several different stereotypes that that Asian women are.
No, let's just like dive on in. Let's go. Let's talk about
that. Asian women are very, that they're, because the very first Asian, you have to think about black and white films, like even the very first Asian women portrayed back then were, of course, portrayed white women. So was Yellowface.
I love it. I like it's such a, there's so many levels to the racism of like, I want to do a racist portrayal of Asian women, but I can't hire an actual Asian woman.
Yeah.
So I'm going to like dress up a white woman to be racist to get like that's some kaleidoscopic bullshit right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
also Roman is here. Hello, Roman. We cherish you. How was mini golf? Now's not the time. We'll talk about mini golf later.
So yeah, this because back then the stereotype was like, this Asian people were kind of like devils, and that they were vindictive, and they had some sort of conspiracy. They were trying to steal things from you, trying to steal you, or whatever it was. So
it's like how my Republican aunt still believes that global warming is a hoax that China made up.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's just very much.
Yeah, Roman, you picked a great time to get here.
Of how Asian women are portrayed, and that's only the tip of the sideways iceberg.
I wish you hadn't said that. That's going to be horrifying for everyone else as well in about 10 minutes, I think.
So yeah, there's just a lot of stereotypes about Asian men and Asian women already, and Chinatowns again were another way of American, particularly white folks, to kind of corral Asian people and segment them in a way that they can control them. No surprise there.
Yeah, shocking. As Maya Rosenthal has pointed out, that sounds very similar to the general anti-Semitic rhetoric. Yeah, It's almost like our whole steez is just demonizing everyone who is not exactly like us for vaguely defined reasons of, like they're bad, they're going to take our stuff that we deserve because we're white.
Right.
From Jess, white supremacy isn't creative. You said it better than me.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. That's great.
That's a good. Gotta put that on a sticker.
I mean, so the other thing is also like, and talking about gender roles, I talk a lot about the model minority myth and where that comes from. Again, there's this really great book by Angela Wu called The Color of Success, and it actually talks about how post World War II. After the Japanese internment camps. After the Japanese internment camps, so they're different, and I'm gonna get these wrong because I'm not Japanese. Hey, can't speak for all of them.
What do you mean all Asian people are not a monolith?
Right. So there's different generations of Japanese Americans, and so with a lot of Asian cultures, and I don't want to speak broadly, but when you get closer to a certain older generation, there's this kind of piety towards family and that sort of thing. So one of the things is.
So you go ahead. I'm interfacing with the chat. Don't let me distract you. Keep talking.
So one of the things is the fact that before they released the Japanese Americans from the internment camp, the U.S. government was like, okay, so all of you are going to be part of America again, but we need you to be like model citizens. And by model citizens, we mean white middle-class suburbanites, essentially. And so it was just wild. And so there were some folks that were like, yeah, let's do this. We owe it. even though we've been thrown in this camp and we lost everything, right? And there are others who are like, no, fuck this, because you literally threw us in here with like nothing, right? And so what happened was, they all left the internment camps. Some Japanese Americans were able to come back to their lands and to their properties, thanks to the decency of good neighbors. Others, unfortunately, lost a lot, and it was either stolen or damaged or destroyed. So, yeah.
Sorry, the chat just mentioned that her toddler. I think y'all need to understand that to the left of my laptop in this very serious discussion is my toddler, cheese smiling with meatballs spilling out of his mouth. Extremely cute. Also, Jess is going to make, y'all should all, okay, listen, I reblog Jess's art from time to time. You should all follow her. She makes really cool shit, and it's really pretty, and she is a much better graphic designer than I will be. Buy that sticker from her. Also, incredibly shaky ground with me making, I just, as a white person, I feel like that's a sticker I have any right to be making, especially since it was said by a woman of color in my chat.
Yeah.
Anyway, also big shout out to Roman, with the US government is always a big eel.
Yes.
Fucking correct.
Yes. And the other thing is, during the Japanese internment, there was a lot of younger Japanese Americans. There's some films about this, about the No-No Boys, or like the books about the No-No Boys, where they ask two specific questions: will you fight for the U.S. and will you pledge your allegiance to the U.S.?
Yeah, the U.S. is like that. God, we really just want to throw you in the military-industrial complex.
Even though we threw your family in this camp, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is very contentious, right? So, like, they had a really huge debate of, like, do we answer yes, no, or yes, yes, or no, no? And there were some folks who actually said no, no. So that was pretty awesome. And not only that, but these younger Japanese Americans started actually aligning more with Black Americans and Latino Americans, especially those who were in the Southwest, and kind of like screw the U.S. government. And so the U.S. government took notice, and they freaked out a little bit. And they were like, no, 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 you have to be like white Americans. And so
a terrible thing to do to anyone.
Yeah. And so it just became this really interesting thing that happened, where it was several different things. So after they left the internment camps, they had to be model white citizens, and even more so. And not only that, but these white cities and districts were like, oh, we have to turn our Chinatowns into something that people actually want to go to.
I mean, there were already like Chinese people who wanted to go there, but like, God forbid.
We are about to talk about the Yellow Power movement.
Yeah, cool.
And again, I do want to put a caveat that I actually did not learn about a lot of this until after my second bachelor's degree.
Jeez.
Because this content is not in K through 12, and I grew up in Kansas. I definitely did not have this content at all, other than like, oh yeah, here's a Japanese internment camp, and now we're moving on to the next thing.
I can't believe they even mentioned that, honestly. God, we do not like talking about our internment camps.
Yes, we did not coordinate this dog shirt idea thing.
Wait, who? Oh, yeah. We got, okay, so I put on my dog shirt and I was wearing it at work today, and then Nate showed up to get ready for the stream, and I realized we were both wearing dog print button-ups, and I lost my entire shit. Also, Marjo, I'm glad you're here. Go to bed after this. It's like 3 a.m. in Marjo's time zone. She's in the Netherlands, I believe. Yeah,
that's by the way, Marjo, we should just move to the Netherlands.
Sure.
We're moving.
What else am I doing? No. Don't, you can't put that on someone. But I do like the Netherlands. God. Okay, from Jess, trying to shop in NYC Chinatown while white tourists take selfies with their air and the fish kills me, and I'm not even Asian. Yeah. Okay, I guess we are visiting Marjo. Everybody, next stream is happening in the Netherlands. Woo! Oh yeah, you have those titty socks. Dog shirt, titty socks, full look. Full look. Anyway, you were about to talk about the Yellow Power movement.
So yeah, so this kind of leads into this model minority myth of because around 1965-ish, some sociologists said, oh, Chinese Americans are the most studious and the hardworking and industrious, and then somebody else said, oh no, it's the Japanese Americans, and then somehow became this blanket statement for all Asian Americans.
So as someone with a sociology degree, I would like to take this moment to remind everyone that science is not without bias.
Yeah. So
at all.
And that's the weird part is people are like, oh, well, what's so bad about being a model minority? It's like, well, that's really bad, actually.
Yeah.
Because what we have to recognize that before 1965, a lot of immigrants that came over to the U.S. were part of a quota system, and meaning that the only way they could come to the U.S. is if they already had money, or if they had some skill sets that the U.S. government wanted to have here in America. So, yeah. About Asian American history as a kid, and I found like enough to fill maybe 2 high school. Yeah, June,
cool.
I feel you on that. And it takes a lot of time. I would definitely follow up on HuffPost Asian Voices. That's a really good one. And then I think just reading a lot about even just Black history and seeing some of the similarities. And I don't want to co-opt that in any way, but seeing that a lot of the work that has already been done is by Black Americans and African Americans. So definitely look that up. So anyway, yeah, it somehow became this model minority. So then after 1965, the Johnson Act, we finally, here's the other thing. Another way.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Before 1965, because of that quota system, that also excluded gay folks.
Amazing. We've arrived at the intersection of identities.
Yes. Because remember, being gay back then was considered a mental disorder. And so that was a way to screen out gay folks or anybody perceived to be gay. Cool. So that really, narrowed down the types of Asian American or Asian folks that could come to America and become Asian Americans.
So you need to have skills the U.S. wants. You need to have some money, and you cannot be or seem gay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that happened. And then after after 1965, they finally did away with the quota system, and that really opened up immigration to, not to necessarily open the floodgates, but did make it a little bit easier to immigrate and not have to hit a certain number. And so then you had, more Southeast Asians, particularly Hmong. Hmong is an indigenous population of Southeast Asia. There are also other indigenous populations in Southeast Asia that I didn't even know about until the Miss Universe pageant.
I can't believe something wholesome came from the Miss Universe pageant.
Yeah, when
nice.
When Miss Vietnam turned out to be an indigenous woman from Vietnam, and I was like, wait, what? We have indigenous people that are not just Hmong, and so it's like. Yeah, so she actually speaks three languages.
Bye, Roman.
She was like speaking Vietnamese, her indigenous language, and then English, right? And yeah, that's another thing.
Stan.
Yeah, and the Americans made fun of her. So
I will burn everything down. What on earth is there to make fun of her for?
Apparently, she was making fun of her for English.
She speaks 3 languages. How many do you speak? I'm fine. I'm fine. This is fine. It's not fine.
So the Yellow Power movement came about at the same time as the Black Power movement, which is really cool. Ooh, you speak 6 languages. I'm so jealous.
What the shit? Good for you. I'm shaken.
Yeah, exactly.
Goodness gracious. Okay, no, listen. That you don't have to be fluent. Yeah. That's about 5.5 more than most people are packing. Marjo's also killing it with 3. That's God. This is unrelated. I'm deeply, deeply in my soul jealous of countries that everybody fuck off. And by fuck off, I mean I'm with Nathan Spaulding. God, I wish that was me. I'm so deeply and profoundly jealous of countries where it's just prioritized to teach kids other languages from the time they're very small and normalize that. Anyway, that makes from Allie. I spend like half my life on Duolingo. Y'all, I've been ghosting the owl for like the last week, and she is big mad. Don't make that face. I feel like I know where this is. Don't. We've made it 28 minutes. Talk about more stuff.
So the Yellow Power movement came about at the same time as the Black Power movement, and where you have a lot of these Asian American kids, particularly have to give it up for the Japanese American kids, particularly Japanese American kids directly descended from or came from the internment camps because they were big mad, and they had every right to be, right? And so folks like Yuri Kochiyama is definitely a big one, and if you don't get a chance, definitely look her up. Yuri Kochiyama was like best friends with Malcolm X.
Nice.
If you look at the Time magazine article that has the pictures of Malcolm X's assassination, as traumatizing as those photos are, if you look in the background, it's actually Yuri Kochiyama holding Malcolm's head and begging him to stay alive. And so, yeah, Yuri Kochiyama is really integral of the Black Power movement and labor movement, and she is, you know, pretty awesome. And she was best friends with Malcolm X, which is, you know, also pretty cool. She also had these really fantastic 1960s glasses that have like that come to the point.
God, those are a look.
Yeah, and she was great. So there's a really great photo, black and white photo of her where she's wearing those glasses and she's yelling into like a megaphone.
I'll find it and I'll put it in the outline of this episode.
Yeah.
Also, Google exists.
Yeah, and by the way, she'd also put my YouTube in there, even though it's been a while since I put any videos.
I hate this. Everyone go follow Nate on YouTube.
I do have a YouTube. I just haven't put up any videos yet because my voice is still changing, and I still, every once in a while, I sound like a middle school boy.
Follow Nate's YouTube channel. You'll see a couple months of videos of Nate playing guitar and staring wordlessly into a camera. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you know, that's yo kid. I definitely hear you on that. You know, I think learning about the shared history and how folks, you know, collaborated a lot. You know, hi. Yeah, you're gonna drop the link to my YouTube. Can you?
God, I will. Okay, I will link it when we're done. God, fucking hell! The cat is here. Hello. I'm gonna yeah, I'll drop the link. You keep talking. I'm gonna get the link for everyone. I'm gonna throw this fucking cat out of the room. Hey.
I'm gonna take a selfie on Mackenzie's phone.
I hate it. Well, it took 31 minutes, but my phone's on the floor now. This stream has reached the chaos energy we all knew was coming. Get away from my phone.
Yes, I got it.
God, okay. You can't. I'm still gonna drop your YouTube channel after this. You don't deserve it, but keep going.
So other Asian American folks that were part of the Yellow Power movement, Grace Lee Boggs, who hails from Michigan. She lived to be 100. She was amazing. She was part of the Black Power movement, and she lived in the Detroit area, and she was pretty awesome. There's also Richard Aoki, who was actually part of the Black Panther movement, and he's the only Asian American to ever be part of the Black Panther Party. So that's also pretty cool. He, I think he provided the weapons for the Black Panther Party.
Hell yeah.
So, dork minds think alike. Yes.
You do, all of you, and I love you.
Yes. So there's definitely a lot of shared history there. If you look at the student riots in California, I can't remember what school it was, what universities it were, but when Black students are protesting for African American diaspora studies or ethnic studies, the Asian Americans definitely joined in as well. So did the Chicanos and other Latino folks. So that was also pretty awesome. So there's, you know, the Yellow Power movement was, you know, it happened like, I want to say in the 70s on the West Coast. And then, you know, and don't quote me on this, I'm not a historian. And then it started moving.
Me every week.
And then, you know, started moving to different schools and universities and other areas throughout the US. So, and there's a YouTube link for, hey, yeah.
I'm watching Us on my phone right now, and it's the trippiest fucking thing I've ever done.
I was about to do that too.
Look at this. Yeah, this is so, I hate it. This is so uncomfortable. Yeah. The internet was a mistake. But I live here.
You know, for those of us who are in Michigan, the closest aspect I could think of is Northwestern University in Chicago. Asian American students in the 90s, I want to say the early 90s, they was the 80s or 90s, somewhere around there. He
forgets because he was born in like 1832, so it all blurs in an endless time abyss.
Anyway. I was born in 1981. Thank you.
Sorry, I keep talking.
Go to your room.
We're fucking in my room. This family is a fucking nightmare. This is what Jess was here for, though. The all caps judgy dad face.
So yeah, as I was saying, you know, Northwestern University, or I want to say the late 80s, early 90s, around there, Asian American students protested for a Asian American diaspora studies or ethnic studies as well. The administration did not take their demands seriously, so the Asian American students went on a hunger strike. And so and interestingly enough, the college Republicans were making fun of the hunger strike by giving out free pizza across the courtyard from them.
So college Republicans been trash and stay trash is what I'm hearing. Cool.
Yeah. So that happened. There was one of the students, actually, I think he went on hunger strike for a couple weeks. And yeah, it was wild. And so, yeah, these are like some really great historical things to think about. So anyway, the intersection of like LGBT identity, think about like, we already know that there's a disparate number of people of color represented in media, and the ways they're represented in media are not the greatest. You know, and so
yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Right. So you think about like even like the 80s movies that I grew up with, there was a lot of white savior complex, and especially if there was an Asian American woman, it was very much a white savior complex of the white man saving this Asian woman. Right?
Oh, we love that trope of like, oh, let me save you from your like backwards oppressive culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that. And like, also, you know, you have to think back to all the Asian countries that have had wars. So you think about Japan, Korea, Vietnam, all of Southeast Asia, the Philippines. And then the other thing is, I also forgot to mention that, you know, I can't speak for behalf of all Pacific Islanders, because if you actually listen to Pacific Islanders, their stories are very much similar to Native Americans, you know, of the U.S. government making these promises of like, hey, let's test nuclear stuff on your land and we'll give you health care.
Which is very bad, but I'm also seeing your phone light up with people subscribing to you, and I think that is very sweet.
Thank you all. It means a lot to me. I will upload a video soon, eventually, if I can get my voice to calm down.
Are you allowed to like play things after you have surgery? Is that too much arm movement?
I probably won't be playing acoustic guitar. I might play electric guitar or piano.
You drum like that? You definitely can't, right? No. Okay. Yeah. Thank God you play so many instruments. Anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
What are you speaking?
The New York City history book saying that we gave Japan gender equality in the 40s.
We gave Japan gender equality?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
But, you know, when you think about all this militarization and the military, you know, going into Asia a lot, there was a lot of things happening in Asia. Never mind, you know, the fact that Japanese and Chinese folks really hate each other, and there's very good reason for that. Yep. There's a very good reason for that. And that is, you know, the Japanese were, you know, invading China and also doing a lot of really bad, horrific war crimes and stuff.
Very good question for Miles. Where did we get the gender equality we gave them? Yeah, the phrase the United States gave anyone gender equality as if we had like spare to be giving out is fucking bonkers. Also, the idea that we can just walk into another country and decide what's right for them is fucking bonkers and imperialist and racist.
And I agree with June. Yes, Korea is salty at both Japan and China. You know, you also have to think about the Korean comfort women. And there's, in the comfort women, I mean, like, basically sex slaves. And so there are statues of the Korean comfort women, I think in California, and I think there's some others that they're trying to put around, but it's very contentious because, of course, people are like, oh, we have to be nice to our allies. It's like, no, you can still call them out on their bullshit. You can be nice and still call them out on their bullshit. So, so you have all of that happening. You have all these military guys just running around, having sex either with or without consent. But, you know, right?
Love wartime sexual violence.
Right. And then and this happening like all up and down of Asia. And we haven't even got to the Desi part, like to the South Asian part, you know?
Yeah.
You also have to keep in mind, like, other than Japan and China and Korea, Vietnam was colonized by the French. So there's that. Hong Kong was colonized by the British. India was colonized by the British. Philippines have been colonized by just about everybody.
Really?
Yeah, by Spain, by you know, just like everybody. And so the Philippines, you know, they've had the worst of it as far as colonization goes. So fuck Europeans. Yes.
Yeah. We stand.
Yes.
Jesus. Do you want to, since we are hitting the 40-minute mark, do you want to roll into some of what we, like, obviously you can't detangle any of this, but do you want to roll into some of what we identified as like current cultural things?
Right. So, yeah, I came up with this idea and this topic because as a trans man, a lot of the things I was raised with, and this is, again, mostly my mom putting this on me as a Vietnamese American. She kept
as a European, Marjo has validated us, saying Marjo, we love you.
Yeah. My mom was like, oh, you have to be like a proper Vietnamese woman. You have to be dainty and ladylike and have this long, beautiful hair and all these other things. And I ended up being clumsy, but also wanting to do sports. And, like,
and also, like, we're a dude. So, like, there's a lot. Yeah. So, like, 0 for 3.
Yeah, 0 for 3. Right. And, you know, not take up space and that sort of thing. So there's some of it is the media stereotypes of like Asian women trying to placate others and that they're subservient. Excuse me. They're like the best girlfriend or whatever to have. There's also this myth that.
Yeah. Hi, Sex Witch here. This was my research assignment for this stream. There was, and still to a degree is, judging by some of the like Yahoo Answers results I found when I was Googling this, that East Asian women have like sideways vaginas, despite that making pretty much no anatomical sense or like logical sense, and also being incredibly easy to disprove, you'd think.
Somehow Asian women's vaginas are different.
They just side, even though that would make like a lot of, oh my God, Danielle Snow is here. What's up?
She came in at the, did you just come in at the exact point?
I know Danielle has watched some of these before. She's never commented. That was what finally got it out of her. Anyway, so it started around, as far as it's been traced, it started around the same time, like there were like railroads being built and like, you know, that period of history. Obviously, there weren't a lot of, you know, Chinese or East Asian women here. Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Here at the time, due to like a lot of exclusionary immigration acts, but there was this idea that these women had vaginas that were just sideways somehow. Yeah, like that thing Nate just did. I tried so hard to find like a reason for this, and like the best I could do was a thesis written about it, where they couldn't trace like who started that. But you know, the working theory is like, obviously this is just the kind of myth about a group of people that evolves when they are largely segregated from wider society, wider and whiter society. What's up? Wordplay. You know, you just make up these like stupid urban legends about people and they proliferate and get around and everyone's like, yeah, I guess that's true because they're like foreign and different and weird. Again, you could think like literally any one white dude having sex with an Asian woman could be like, no, but that's white dudes for you.
Yeah.
So this very pervasive myth took off that there was a sideways vagina somehow. And that still seems to exist to a degree. When I went looking for the origins of this weird myth, mostly what I found were like people on Yahoo going, so do Asian women have sideways vagina? Which is distressing, deeply distressing. Oh God, from just, there was a time when people really, capital letters, believed cocaine made black people bulletproof.
Yeah, well, that's another stream.
No, we don't have time to unpack all of that. That is fair. Nathan Spalding points out, that assumes that white guys at the time wanted others to know that they fucked an Asian woman. Racism.
Yeah.
Layers of it. So I couldn't unpack the exact origin of where the sideways vagina thing came from. I assume it literally just came from like white people saying stupid shit about people, making a generalization and it's sticking. It has translated into a slightly less unreasonable myth that like Asian women have tighter vaginas, which I think goes along with the kind of like subservient stereotype. I did find that there was a great, and by great I mean heartily distressing article that was talking about the preference some men hold for tight vaginas, which is bad. And they interviewed one woman who was Asian and was talking about how she was told like, oh, well, like you're Asian, you have a tighter vagina, that's hot. And she was like, no, we're not going there. We're not, nope. someday I'll do an entire stream about why the myth of the tight vagina is dangerous, bad, sexist, overall shitty. But for now, we're going to keep rolling with this. As several of you have noticed in the chat, a sideways vagina would not logistically work. It would just, legs aren't shaped like that. Stream of question marks. Yeah. Again, racist stereotypes don't have to like logically track or make sense. They just happen, and then they stick, and then 14-year-olds are still asking about them on Yahoo Answers in the year of our Lord 2019.
Yeah, if you want to look it up on YouTube, there are some really hilarious videos from Christina Wong and Jenny Yang.
Okay. I was like, what is there for this on YouTube?
No, that was the comedy videos. So Christina Wong did like a book review. She got a bunch of Asian American women to do a book review on this book this white guy wrote of how to get an Asian girlfriend or something like that. Ooh. Yeah, it's as bad as you think. And Jenny Yang is in there. There's even some Asian porn stars in there, and they're like, no, definitely not. And it's no. It's hilarious. Yeah. So definitely look up those two comedians. They're the best. I know. I met both of them. I talked to them. And
he knows everyone on Earth.
Anyway. So that's one myth. Another myth that goes around is that Asian men have really small penises, or that they are not masculine. They're not the ideal boyfriend.
Oh my God, could that be tied to the earlier like demasculizing and feminizing we talked about with like making Asian men work female coded jobs? Amazing.
Thank you, Danielle.
It's like history has repercussions that last for generations.
Right.
Also, yeah, hi Danielle. Danielle also knows Nate, can confirm he's everybody.
So the stereotype that Asian men, there's a couple of roots of where this could possibly have come from, and I won't be able to centralize it to one central cause. Right. Some of it is war of like, oh, well, this white savior complex, like you had to have these American guys come in and help fight your wars for you. Or this other, the fact that in movies it's often portrayed that Asian women are, again, this is very bad, but like the stereotype that Asian women really do want to have sex even if they're saying no.
Oh God. Is it kind of this trope of like, oh, well, like she's so eager to get with this white guy. Also, like clearly it's because the Asian men are not bringing it. God. Right. Yeah. God.
Yes.
God, there's so much going on here.
Yes. And so, and I bring that up because like, that's even in just the heterosexual context. If we talk about heterosexism and cis sexism, right?
Beep, the queer stuff is here.
Right. So what does that mean if you're queer in any way? Like, what does it mean if you're same gender loving, if you're a lesbian or gay or bi even, right? So you think about the stereotypes of what, how white media portrays lesbians as this really exotic thing, really hypersexualized and really for the male gaze, right? And then Asian women are already under this white male gaze as it is. Oh, great. So now we've elevated all of these things for Asian women, right? And
the note that I have in the outline is exotifying queer women plus Asian women equals a special kind of hell for queer Asian women.
Yeah, essentially, yes. And then what does it mean for like Asian men who are gay or bi, right? And so, there's a stereotype that in the gay dating apps that Asian men are somehow natural bottoms, which is not true. Hey, just ask your partner whether.
Hey, being a bottom isn't genetic,
or part of a race, right? Yeah. Or ethnicity.
Don't do that.
Right. So like if you're gonna hook up with somebody, ask them if like what they're into and what you're into, and like actually communicate like this one says, right?
Constantly. I don't know where that was going for a second, but it was, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think there were a good 2 seconds of like fear.jpg. My Facebook wants to track that down. Sorry, go. I get nervous whenever being like this one. It's often bad.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is a really bad stereotype. So, and then like when I finally came out at the time I was coming out as a queer lesbian woman, and my parents were in denial. Hardcore denial. They thought that being queer was a white thing and was very much an American thing, and it was.
They were like, "Oh no, you caught the American."
Yeah, and I was like, "Well, look where we're living."
We're in Kansas, y'all.
Actually, at that time, we were living in Florida.
Oh, even worse.
Yeah. And so, and then, and Spen, I'll definitely get to your point too about being the trans man part, or being a trans woman for that matter. Cause, there are some things that if you're being same gender loving or bi or not, just not heterosexual in any way, like you're dealing with the racist stereotypes. And then also the dating apps of no spice, no rice, no, no spice and no rice is definitely a call out to basically no Asians, no Latinos.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Florida is worse.
That applies to most things.
Florida should be split into multiple states. Anyway,
Florida, we could just saw Florida off and let it float away.
The Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
So then being trans is a whole nother aspect, so I went from being objectified and sexualized and fetishized as an Asian woman throughout my, trying to be feminine, which was, by the way, a disaster.
I literally cannot imagine.
And then being completely ignored as an Asian man. Yeah, like completely ignored. Like it's like, well, I don't know which is. I mean, this on the safer side, being completely ignored is great on the safety side. But I do have some male privilege now because even though I haven't had my chest reconstruction yet, my voice is deepened. I have my hair cut short.
Mm-hmm.
I walk around late at night and nothing really happens to me. And there's times where I've walked with my fiance, and if I'm not holding her hand, like somebody will catcall her, and I'm like, really?
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The world is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah,
Go on.
It was wild when we first started dating and that happened. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a thing that women go through.
It's fun that you got to forget for a while.
Yeah, I forgot for a while. Yes,
on that.
Yeah.
Oh god. If anyone's interested, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about that a lot with another guest, Eli. We are going to get big into like how your lived experience moving through the world changes as you transition and become more masculine. So be here for that.
Right. And then also thinking about like how the definition of femininity and masculinity is definitely in a white context.
Oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
And so like you have, for when you add race, for whatever reason, for Asian men it's emasculinization, and for Black men and Latino men it's machismo or hyper masculinization, right? And then for women, so for Asian women it's like this hypersexualization. For Black women, it runs the gamut. It's there's 4 different stereotypes. There's the Jezebel, the Sapphire,
the mammy,
and then the angry Black girl.
Yeah.
And so, they have to navigate that, right? And then for Latino women, I'm sure there's another aspect, and unfortunately I don't know that off the top of my head. But
it's very often like it's also a lot of like I can't speak for like all any Latino women obviously, but very often it falls back to being like the kind of like fiery, like spicy Latina. There's also like a lot of sexualization there.
Right. With people of color, the darker, the more masculine, it's fucking horrifying. Yeah, there's part of that. It's partially that, but it's also partially colorization. And colorism. And so Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder, a colleague of mine at University of North Florida, actually wrote an article about colorism and the definitions of beauty for Black women. And she actually put all the categories in dark, medium, and light that Black women have been described as or used for each other. And it's a really great article. I would suggest looking into that if you.
I'll like find a link or something, I guess.
Yeah.
That's on write that down for me before you go. I'll throw it on the recommended reading list for this week.
Yeah. So, and it's a really great article. And even if you're not Black, it's a really good article as a person of color to also see. When I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, we have these similar things. I mean, we don't have like dozens of terms to describe dark, medium, and light, but I was just like, these are the same things, because as a Vietnamese American, some other Vietnamese folks have said I'm really light. And they actually don't believe me when I say I'm 100% Vietnamese.
Wow.
And there are times where like I was with my mom when I was younger, and they're like, oh, this kid must have a white dad, because of course with Asian women and white men, but
naturally,
but also because I was lighter, and so it was just, and now when they realized that both my parents were Vietnamese, they were like, oh, you must be really proud that you're really light. I was like, why does that have to be? thing.
Oh. Please take pride in this thing that you have no control over and also is entirely steeped in racism.
Yeah.
So we are coming up on our hour mark. I want to circle to 2 points near the end of the outline. One that just says Asian sex ed bad, and then also the isolation of identity.
All right. So Asian sex ed, I did not have that talk as a kid. The birds and the bees talk, or the birds and the birds, or the bees and the bees. None of it.
I dibs the bees. Or the bees now.
I didn't have any of it, and I remember when I came out at 25 as a queer woman, my parents thought, "Oh, well, you just haven't found the right guy yet." And at that point, I was like, "Well, I've already had sex with guys," and they were just horrified, and I was just like, and they were just like, "What?" And it's an important combo because the other thing is the amount of cervical cancer in Asian women is pretty high because nobody wants to talk about their private parts.
Oh shit! Shit.
Yeah,
that is nothing I was aware of. That's because that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking about cervical cancer the other day, as one does, and it largely stems from HPV, and that's a thing that you can get checked out by a pap smear and catch early if you're going in and getting those checkups and talking to a doctor about what's going on in your cervix and your vagina. But if that's just not like a conversation that happens culturally, God, that is so dangerous.
It is. And then there's also the context of Asian cultures of like, I was very much raised in this context of you don't ask for help for anything. And thank you, Marjo, for calling me a sweetheart.
He's decent.
And
I let him know where I live. He's fine.
Yeah. And we don't talk about things, and asking for assistance. And sometimes the physical symptoms of things can also be like mental health reasons, but we don't want to allude to that. So that takes a lot of work, and there's language and cultural barriers sometimes that happens. So sex ed is almost non-existent unless you're living in areas that have very high salient identities, such as San Francisco, New York, Chicago. Any place that has like a whole lot of Asian folks. Houston, for some reason, has a ton of Vietnamese folks. Jacksonville, Florida, has a ton of Filipino folks. It's interesting how we all like just pick a region or a city, and it's like we're just gonna go there. And then what was the other one about
the kind of like isolation of identity within, I think like both within a queer identity and an Asian identity.
Yeah. So growing up in Kansas, I went to University of Kansas, and at that time, I knew I was queer, but there was no representation of what it meant to be Asian and queer in the media.
Oh yeah, we kind of glossed over. We had a bullet point about how queer spaces, and I think you talked a little about how like queer media is just like white as hell. Like there's very little representation of what it is to be like queer and a person of color. Yeah. Which is, largely I think because a lot of mainstream media is lazy and is like, oh, well, like we have a gay, like they cannot possibly be a gay and a person of color. That's excessive. You have your gay.
Yeah. And so there was no representation, and I didn't see any other students that were going through the same identity issues as I was. So I was like, I'm the only gay Asian or Gaysian in all of the state of Kansas.
I also want to shout out to June real quick, who pointed out that, quote, when you're one of the many transracial adoptees from Asia in the US, there's a lot of stuff that is different that your white parents don't know and can't explain to you. Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, exactly. And that's another conversation that's come up a lot with working with Asian American students. Yes. And I worked with Asian American students at my last institution at North Carolina State because nobody else was doing it officially. Officially, my job was assistant director at GLBT office. Unofficially, I was doing another full-time job as the Asian American coordinator. So that was fun.
I love that emotional labor.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's just really, so I thought I was the only Asian in all the state of Kansas. And then I slowly started coming out to my friends, and then my friends like, hey, you should meet these other folks. And I was like, why? And that's when I met my friend Victoria, who was this ABC, American born Chinese, who was also a lesbian, and she is now engaged to her fiance in Washington, in Seattle, Washington. Yeah. And I started meeting other like queer Asian folks. And so it was like I no longer felt isolated. And it was really cool when I worked at North Carolina State, you know, me being out officially as a GLBT assistant director, but then unofficially doing Asian work, I had more Asian American students actually coming up to me and asking what it was like for me to come out, how to come out, and what do, right?
Did you, I don't want to like drive this home too much, but like prior to like meeting other Gaysians, like did you like have a, like, did you feel like you like invented being a gay Asian, or like what was the,
oh, no.
Okay, all right. I just don't like, what exactly, was it just a sense of like, there were like no models, like no idea like, what that was supposed to look like
there was definitely,
didn't know where to fucking find any other folks?
I didn't know where to find folks. You have to keep in mind, like I'm older, I'm not 1860s old. I knew you were going to go there. My freshman year in college, internet was like an extra charge, and it was like a super luxurious thing. And we had only one port. And I literally remember the girls across the hall from me were like, one was on the AOL Instant Messenger. It was like, hey, can you get off so I can get online to do my homework? And it's like, yeah, let me sign off. And literally like physically switch cables.
Oh my God.
So that way the one roommate could get
like
online.
Going to college and getting the bubonic plague while you're at it.
and so yeah, there wasn't like I didn't even
right.
It didn't even occur to me that I could go online and look for gay Asians, right? I just thought I'm just stuck in here in Kansas unless I go to San Francisco or something like that. And so yeah,
that's so interesting. Okay, that's interesting that like it was like San Francisco, because I feel like for like the white gays, it's like got to get to New York, like it's a whole different like there's an entirely different like cultural axis that revolves around.
Well, there was a lot of white gays that were also going to San Francisco in general because of Harvey Milk.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so there's that, and there was also a lot of Asian folks that immigrated and they just settled in California. So that was, you know, I went to University of Kansas.
Or was that aimed at the other Nate who just said, I thought the plague was just a normal part of college? I also
you have to clarify which Nate.
This one was University of Kansas, though.
Yes, for the first one.
Oh, nice. Is there only one college in Kansas?
No.
I don't know what's in Kansas.
University of Kansas, Kansas
All
State,
right.
Haskell Indian Nation
All
University,
right.
Johnson
Okay.
County Community College, University of Missouri, Kansas City, Garden City Community College, Dodge City Community College.
How do you know?
Washburn University.
Do you know how many colleges from Montana I
Truman
can name?
University.
It's one. Why do you know all of these? Wheat. There's wheat.
Wichita University, Wichita State. Yeah, Washburn, Emporia. I forgot about Emporia, Fort Hays. Yeah, you could go on. Anyway.
Why do you have so many schools? Okay, whatever.
University of Missouri, yes, that's down at I-70.
I thought that was located in Wyoming.
No, University of Missouri is Tigers. University of Missouri.
Understood. Okay, go on. Is this like a rivalry y'all have?
We used to until they left. They left for the different conference, so that's why.
Oh, God, I love that we're getting followers for Nate and Jess tonight, and that people were connecting on Duolingo. I love the sense that there's like a thriving community here.
Yes, I agree with June. There's a lot of universities here too.
There's so many
in Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing.
So yeah, a lot of Asian folks in San Francisco, a lot of gay folks in San Francisco, and
there's some overlap.
Yeah, it was great.
Venn diagram there.
Every time I go to San Francisco, I'm actually in the majority. It's wild.
Yeah. A good feeling.
Yeah.
Y'all have motivated me to also get back on my Duolingo grind. I will get back to learning Spanish tonight. The owl will kill me. If I win the fight with the owl, y'all know that Tumblr post, I will be back and learning Spanish with you.
So yeah, I don't know, where should we
I kind of want to wrap. So we're kind of at the end of our thing, and we're at an hour and 3. I wanted to start a new thing that I do with guests that I forgot to do because I was excited about the camera. Sorry, I mean to like, no, but I wanted to start opening by asking like, what is a thing that you didn't learn through sex ed that you wish people learned?
Something that I learned through sex ed that I wish people would learn.
Or something that you like, something you didn't learn, like something that was like a gap in what, and like, I mean, you said you learned nothing. So like something that you had to learn, not like the hard way necessarily, like something you had to figure out yourself that you wish people learned more readily.
Some STI symptoms can also go beyond just the actual, like, what's in the region. This is the best way to, because I used to work as an HIV tester and counselor, and I was an STI intake person for Duval County for a little bit. And I actually had to ask folks, depending on what parts they had, you know, have you done this? Have you inserted this? Has someone else inserted this? Have you put your mouth on, you know, this sort of thing? And here we go. Okay.
He returns and he leaves. Sorry, keep talking.
Yeah,
about
STIs. One of the STIs that I did not know about, I had to ask the ARNP about, was trichomoniasis.
Y'all may remember Trick is the fun little purple guy with a dick spike and 3 strands of hair from my STI stream.
Yeah, trichomoniasis, you can actually smell it. And
so that's fun.
The nurse practitioner said that sometimes he could just walk into the exam room and be like, oh, it's Trick.
That's Trick. What is the smell? What would you compare it to?
I don't know, but I'm horrified.
Understandable.
I was horrified, and I just looked at him like, good to know.
Good to know. But then you never ran into it.
I didn't, because I was just giving the paper questions and asking about people's sexual health and history.
Which is always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do want to point it out there for those of you who are looking for, I would definitely look up other LGBT resources that are POC friendly. One that I often refer to is NQAPIA, the National Queer Asian Pacific Islander Association. NQAPIA, I'll put that in there.
Yeah, go ahead. You're not typing.
NQAPIA.org.
There we go.
They actually did a video campaign in multiple Asian languages of Family is Family. And it was really helpful. I asked them, and they said they're still working on doing the stuff for the trans identities, because there is definitely a language and cultural barrier of how to explain trans identities to your parents. Because my mom still thinks that me being trans is somehow me being related to, attracted to women.
No, those are like 2 separate things.
Yes,
that is, yeah, like I think so much of like queer terminology we throw around is like so steeped in English, and that's God.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to approach that?
And the great thing about NQAPIA, they also do their work. Their work is very intersectional in that they're also looking at immigration work as well.
Nice.
So it's not only just LGBT stuff, but also immigration stuff. Anything related to queer Asian American identity, they're about it. So.
I love that. I'm going to start winding down. If anyone has like any closing questions you would like to throw at Nate, start sending those. I'm going to do that thing I always do where I drop y'all a sweet link to my Patreon. I did like backload Patreon rewards for this month. So if you sign up to support that right now, you're going to get some good stuff almost immediately, because I've been very busy and Pride almost killed me with physical exhaustion.
She was fine.
I was, but I spent Friday getting shit-faced in public, and then I spent all of Saturday working a vendor booth while 4 people stayed at my house.
She was fine.
Oh, where did you get your shirt?
My fiance got this for me from Hot Topic.
I also got this shirt from his fiance. She was giving away some clothes a while ago, and I took it. And I don't know where she. Check the tag. I think it's Old Navy.
Love Notes.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I was wrong about Old Navy.
So June asked about any test for coming out as an Asian American and transgender Asian American. Sorry, Asian American. Like, you can't really see it. Honestly, I mean, coming out in general is hard. I think just finding out your network and finding a support group and finding different facets of support. I think something that I had to learn that was kind of hard throughout my 20s is finding out that the queer community, the queer community is diverse, and you have to figure out like which folks you want for, or which settings and environments you want to be in for different things. Like, it doesn't all have to be steeped in clubs. And even that dates me because I'm older, because these folks don't go to clubs anymore.
Well, I don't go to clubs because I'm old.
Right.
I'm old in my soul. I'm tired and socially anxious.
Right.
I identify as tired.
So coming out as trans, I think maybe, if you look in your community LGBT center, see if they have a trans group, and see, just get some support there and see what other folks go through. I definitely, this goes back to my work of working at LGBT youth, is don't come out unless you're ready. If you feel you're ready, if you feel you're safe. And that is one of the biggest things.
I think also that you don't have to be out to everyone simultaneously. Like if there's areas where it's safe, go for it. And if there's areas where it's not safe, that's you don't have to be out everywhere. I cannot put I identify as tired on a t-shirt because I stole it from Hannah Gadsby. Watch her Netflix special. She's very good.
So if you're going to come out as trans and as an Asian American, I think it's, for me, I did it. I came out after moving out. Well, no, actually, I was still living with my parents at the time because I was going through a quarter life crisis.
Sorry, Emily's here and wants to look at that microphone. Emily, I have a new camera and you can see my microphone now.
Yeah. But I had a quarter life crisis, and I moved out not long after coming out to my parents. And then
good timing.
Right. And so that was when I was coming out for my sexual orientation, and it took them 7 years to get over it. As opposed to coming out as trans, it took them a month.
you prepped them, like you built up.
Yeah, it took them a month or so, but also I'm living several states away, so it's not like they can just harass me into coming over for dinner. I think
you will drive down to Florida immediately. I
think the biggest thing is when you're coming out, of family in general, family has a way of pushing all the buttons to just really piss you off. And it's really hard to have that self-awareness to know when you've reached peak capacity. So setting boundaries for yourself and being easy with yourself. And a lot of times with my parents, they would, when I came out, before I came out as trans, they would get on me about my masculine identity. And so they were like, why is your hair short? And all these other things. And at that time, I was like, I don't have to be here for this. And I literally would just walk out.
Healthy. Healthy.
So I would literally just walk out, and I set boundaries for myself. If I had to do it over again, I would probably say something more along the lines of, hey, where this conversation is going is not healthy. I really value our relationship. We cannot talk about it in this way. We need to reframe this or come back to this later. So how does the feminization of Asian men affect you as a trans man? That is a really good question.
Yeah, that's a fucking doozy.
I think, so I'm going to be honest that I don't feel like it has affected me that much because I'm not single. I'm not single.
Fucking relationship people privilege.
I'm not single, so I don't have to worry about trying to date women, and women kind of...
Like you can demonstrably be like, look, here is my lady woman fiance. I've done it.
Right. And even though she and I are polyamorous, we haven't actually explored anything beyond that because we talk about everything. And so yeah, it hasn't really affected me in a way that I have what are you doing?
The cat is assaulting my window.
That I have noticed.
Hey dumbass, you fell out that once, don't do it again.
I think interestingly enough, the gym has become very interesting lately, and that I'm noticing the guys will just go ahead around me, not at me, but around me, just have zero filter. And that is part of the male privilege, right? So they zero filter. They can say whatever they want, to do whatever they want. They also goof off a lot more, which is hilarious because I keep waiting for it to blow up in their faces. And so I'm just sitting back there like the old person, like, you're going to look like idiots in a minute here.
Sorry, Emily in the chat has said nominating relationship privilege for next stream topic. I'm going to use that opportunity to tell y'all what's actually coming up while Nate reads some more chat comments and puts his huge face in the camera. So next week, I actually have the next couple weeks pretty mapped out already. Next week, I am going to clear this wall, put up a big piece of paper, and draw y'all an anatomically correct penis and explain all the parts. There's a lot of them. And I learned so much. I was originally going to cover like multiple genitalias, and then I learned so much about the penis, I had to make it its own episode. So look out for the vagina sometime in July or August. But next week is going to be the penis. I have not decided if I'm going to be drinking for that little Bob Ross draw-along special. I might be, because I think we all like to watch tipsy people draw. I'm going to like sniff a glass of wine. You know how I am with alcohol. Oh, Jess, thank you.
My gorgeous face?
He is gorgeous. I am a goblin.
Wait, I got to flex too.
Stop! Stop!
I can. So the idea was if the audience was thirsty enough, I would take the shirt off because I'm wearing another. Like
you did not clear that.
But the audience is not thirsty enough, so it's fine.
Get less thirsty. Get less thirsty. We need to be in the negatives. I'm gonna keep on moving. No, I'm gonna keep on.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you for admiring the flex. Haley, thank you also saying I'm gorgeous. Eli,
go to hell. Speaking of Eli is going to be here in 2 weeks if I don't send Eli to hell first. Like I talked about, we're going to be covering masculinity and how existing in the world changes. Emily, I swear to God, I have the worst friends in the world. How you're perceived in the world changes as you transition and present in a more masculine way. That's going to be really interesting. And then the week after that, the first weekend of July, stop it. I am gonna finally do my guided tour of interesting sex researchers through history. Not all of them contributed good things, but they are all buck wild. Here's a fun fact. People who get really passionate about any kind of sex education tend to have some exciting lives. We're gonna get real deep into Sylvester Graham. Dude kind of had a cult of graham cracker makers. And he's just one of them. We're also going to talk about a lot of folks. Eli, I swear to God! Stop! Danielle, I'm really excited for your enthusiasm. Hey, okay, like half the group chat is just people I know in real life sending me straight to hell right now. And I love that. Love that for y'all. I hate this.
But I do want to say to June, like, if you want to go ahead and come out, just go ahead and do it. Like, either you can do it slowly or go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid.
Rip off the shirt.
I know what's something that I did to come out as trans on my social media is I just went ahead and did it for Trans Day of Visibility, which comes up in March. Or you could do it Trans Day of Visibility, or you could just go ahead and do it. Pick a day that means something to you, and or get up the courage and have your support system out, and tell your support system, hey, I want to come out as trans on social media, and I don't know how this is gonna go. So, yeah, K to hell. Nate is a cutie answer. Yes, thank you, Rachel.
Stop bolstering his ego. It's big enough. That's why his head is so big. It's full of ego. I also don't know what my Duolingo username is. I didn't know it could be a social app. So that's that. Stop it! All right, that's it. Good night, everybody. I love you. I will see you next week, hopefully. No, we're definitely... YouTube, let me end the stream. YouTube.